Two black women asked the shy rancher for a child, and the gentle giant stood frozen on his weathered porch, hat trembling in his calloused hands as their impossible request shattered his silent world. The broken-down homesteader was town mockery, too soft for frontier life, destined to die alone on his failing land, while stronger men claimed prosperity. But these determined sisters saw what others missed. Rare gentleness in a harsh world, patience that could nurture life from barren soil. They offered marriage to both and ownership of their father's fertile 300 acres, transforming the struggling bachelor into a landowner overnight. Yet beneath their proposition lies a dangerous secret involving a mixed-race orphan boy whose hidden inheritance could elevate them all, or destroy everything they're building when the law comes calling. Will the rancher's first real choice become his last? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The morning sun cast long shadows across Silas Bryn's struggling ranch as he hauled water to his dying cattle. His boots crunched against the parched earth of Cedar Flats. The year was 1882, and drought had claimed most of his crops. Silas wiped sweat from his brow and glanced toward town. He dreaded his weekly trip to the general store. The other ranchers always found ways to remind him of his failures. His gentle nature made him an easy target. While other men settled disputes with fists or guns, Silas preferred quiet conversation. This kindness was seen as weakness in the harsh frontier town. The cattle lowed softly as he approached. These animals were the only beings that didn't judge him. His touch calmed even the most agitated beast. His neighbors called it strange. Silas called it understanding. By noon he had no choice but to head into town for supplies. His empty pantry demanded the humiliating trip. The general store buzzed with the usual crowd of ranchers and businessmen. Sheriff Jeb Hollow stood near the counter, his badge catching the light. His booming voice carried across the store as Silas entered. The conversation stopped. "Well, look what the wind blew in," Sheriff Hollow announced. "Half-Man Bryn himself." The other men chuckled. Silas kept his eyes down and moved toward the supply shelves. His hands shook slightly as he gathered flour and beans. "Still playing house with those mangy cattle of yours?" another rancher asked. "Heard you sing lullabies to calm them down." More laughter filled the store. Silas focused on his shopping list. He had learned long ago that responding only made things worse. "Mark my words," Sheriff Hollow continued, "that boy will die alone on that patch of dirt. Too soft for this country." Silas paid for his supplies and left quickly. The men's laughter followed him outside. He loaded his wagon under the scorching sun, his face burning with shame. A small figure darted between the buildings nearby. Young Jasper, a mixed-race orphan who survived on odd jobs, watched from the shadows. The boy's eyes held sympathy that the adults in town lacked. Silas nodded at Jasper before climbing onto his wagon. The boy raised his hand in a small wave. At least one person in Cedar Flats didn't see him as a failure. The ride home felt endless. Silas replayed the humiliation in his mind. Sheriff Hollow was probably right. He would die alone, forgotten by a town that never respected him. Back at his ranch, he found comfort in his evening chores. The animals responded to his gentle touch. His old mare nuzzled his shoulder as he brushed her coat. Here, his kindness had value. As sunset painted the sky orange, 3 figures appeared on the horizon. Silas shaded his eyes and watched them approach. 2 well-dressed black women walked beside a distinguished older man. The women wore their Sunday finest, despite the dusty road. Their posture spoke of dignity and purpose. The man carried himself like a preacher, his dark suit impeccable despite the heat. Silas set down his brush and walked toward his porch. Visitors were rare on his isolated ranch. These strangers seemed different from the usual drifters or lost travelers. The older woman stepped forward first. Her eyes held intelligence and determination. "Are you Silas Bryn?" "Yes, ma'am." His voice barely rose above a whisper. "I am Amara Harper. This is my sister Celine." She gestured to the younger woman beside her. And Pastor Elijah Grant from Freedman's Settlement. Silas nodded respectfully. He had heard of the black community 20 miles east, but never visited. His hands fidgeted with his hat brim. Pastor Grant smiled warmly. "We have watched you from afar, Mr. Bryn. Your reputation for kindness has reached our settlement." The statement confused Silas. Nobody in Cedar Flats would call him anything but weak. He glanced between his visitors, unsure how to respond. Celine spoke for the first time. Her voice carried the same strength as her sister's. "We have come with a proposal that may surprise you." Silas felt his cheeks burn. He rarely spoke with women, let alone received formal visits from them. His tongue felt thick and useless. Amara stepped closer. "Our community faces challenges, Mr. Bryn. We need strong families to ensure our future." "We have observed your character," Pastor Grant added. "Your patience with animals, your persistence despite hardship, your refusal to carry weapons or settle disputes with violence." The words felt foreign to Silas. These qualities had only brought him mockery in town. Now strangers traveled miles to praise them. Celine's next words stopped his heart. "We would like you to father children with both of us." The world seemed to tilt. Silas gripped his porch railing to steady himself. His mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. No words came. "In return," Amara continued, "you would marry us both and inherit our father's 300 acres of fertile farmland adjacent to your property." The proposal hit him like lightning. Marriage, children, land that could actually sustain crops. Everything he had dreamed of but never dared hope for. Pastor Grant's gentle voice cut through his shock. "This arrangement would transform your circumstances, son. From struggling bachelor to prosperous family man overnight." Silas stared at the three faces before him. They were serious. These remarkable people had chosen him, the town failure, for reasons he couldn't comprehend. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "I need time to think." The sisters exchanged glances. Amara nodded. "Of course. This is not a decision to make lightly." As they prepared to leave, young Jasper burst around the corner of the house. His face was flushed from running. "Mr. Bryn," the boy gasped. "Sheriff Hollow is gathering men in town. Says he won't let outsiders corrupt decent folk." The warning hung in the air like a storm cloud. Silas looked at his visitors, then at the boy who had risked everything to warn him. For the first time in his life, people were counting on him to be strong. Dawn broke over Cedar Flats as Silas stared at his reflection in the wash basin. The Harper sisters' proposal had kept him awake all night. 300 acres of fertile land, a real family, everything he had never dared dream of. Young Jasper's warning echoed in his mind. Sheriff Hollow was already mobilizing against the arrangement. The boy had risked his safety to bring word of the gathering storm. Silas walked to his porch and found the sisters waiting by their small camp. They had slept under the stars rather than impose on his hospitality. Their dignity impressed him even in these rough circumstances. Amara stood first, brushing dust from her dress. "Have you reached a decision, Mr. Bryn?" The words stuck in his throat. He had never been good with important moments. His hands trembled as he removed his hat. "You can stay," he managed, "in the barn loft, during the trial period." Celine smiled for the first time since their arrival. The expression transformed her serious face completely. Pastor Grant nodded with approval. "The barn will serve us well," Amara said. "We are not strangers to humble accommodations." Within hours, the sisters had converted the loft into comfortable living quarters. They worked with efficiency that amazed Silas. Every movement had purpose. Amara examined his struggling crops with expert eyes. She knelt in the dirt and crumbled soil between her fingers. Her assessment was swift and certain. "Your soil lacks proper nutrients," she announced. "Crop rotation would restore its strength within 2 seasons." She sketched patterns in the dirt with a stick. Her knowledge of farming techniques surpassed anything Silas had learned from his father. The Harper sisters came from a tradition of making barren land productive. Celine turned her attention to his livestock. She moved among the cattle with confidence that rivaled his own. Her hands found every weakness and strength in his small herd. "These animals have good bones," she declared. "Better breeding choices would improve your stock dramatically." The sisters began implementing changes immediately. They worked from sunrise to sunset without complaint. Their energy infected Silas with new hope for his struggling ranch. Pastor Grant visited daily to conduct what he called courtship counseling. The sessions helped navigate the awkward dynamics of their unusual arrangement. Three people learning to become a family. Courtship is about understanding hearts, the pastor explained during one evening session, not just following traditions. The town's reaction came swiftly. Some families offered quiet support through anonymous gifts of food and supplies. Others joined Sheriff Hollow's campaign to drive the arrangement out of Cedar Flats. Mrs. Henderson from the general store stopped by with fresh bread. She spoke in whispers as if spies might be listening. "Pay no mind to the troublemakers," she advised. "Some of us see what you're building here." But the opposition grew louder each day. Sheriff Hollow made his rounds through town, stirring up sentiment against the unconventional family. His words found fertile ground among those who feared change. Young Jasper became a regular presence at the ranch. The boy helped with chores and served as an early warning system for brewing trouble. His mixed heritage made him an outcast like Silas, creating natural kinship between them. The boy's quick mind impressed all three adults. He learned farming techniques with remarkable speed. His presence felt natural, as if he belonged with their growing family unit. Weeks passed in productive routine. Silas felt himself changing under the sisters' influence. He spoke more often and with greater confidence. Their belief in him slowly replaced years of self-doubt. The transformation became apparent during his next trip to town. When Sheriff Hollow made his usual mocking comments, Silas stood straighter. He met the lawman's eyes without flinching. "My affairs are my own business, Sheriff," Silas replied calmly. The response surprised everyone in the general store. Quiet. Silas Bryn had found his voice. Murmurs rippled through the gathered men. Sheriff Hollow's face reddened. "Don't get too comfortable with your unnatural arrangement, boy. The law has ways of dealing with such things." But Silas had already turned away. The threat no longer carried its old power over him. He had people depending on him now. The summer drought arrived early and hit with devastating force. Silas's well ran completely dry within days. The sisters' community 20 miles away faced similar devastation. Crops withered in the merciless sun. Cattle grew thin and desperate. Both settlements watched their carefully planned futures crumble into dust. Sheriff Hollow seized the opportunity to spread his interpretation of events. He held impromptu sermons outside the general store, drawing crowds with his passionate delivery. "This drought is a sign," he proclaimed. "God doesn't bless unnatural unions. The land itself rebels against such arrangements." His words found eager listeners among those already opposed to the unconventional family. Fear and superstition mixed with prejudice to create a dangerous combination. Pastor Grant countered with his own message of hope and perseverance. He reminded both communities that hardship tested faith rather than punishing it. His words carried weight among the faithful. The crisis forced Silas to face his deepest fears. He could retreat to his old life of safe isolation. The sisters would understand if he chose survival over principle. But as he watched Amara and Celine work tirelessly to dig a new well, he realized retreat was no longer possible. These remarkable women had given him purpose beyond his own survival. Young Jasper appeared at his elbow as he contemplated the difficult choice ahead. The boy's presence reminded him that their arrangement affected more than just three adults. "What do we do now, Mr. Bryn?" Jasper asked with the direct honesty of youth. Silas looked at the boy, then at the sisters bent over their shovels in the blazing sun. His answer came without hesitation. "We commit completely," he said, "no matter what comes next." That evening, Silas knelt before both sisters in their humble barn loft quarters. His voice shook with emotion as he spoke the words that would change everything. "Will you marry me? Both of you?" The formal proposal sealed their fate together, for better or worse. The engagement announcement spread through Cedar Flats like wildfire. Within hours, Sheriff Hollow had organized a group of angry townsmen, their voices carried across the dusty main street as they planned their response. Silas felt their hostility like a physical weight. Every trip to town brought new glares and whispered threats. The general store fell silent when he entered. Former neighbors turned their backs, but the Harper sisters stood firm beside him. Their unwavering support gave him strength he had never possessed. Together, they began the desperate work of digging a new well. The drought had turned the earth to concrete. Each shovelful required tremendous effort under the scorching sun. Blisters formed on Silas's hands despite years of ranch work. Amara wiped sweat from her brow and examined their progress. "We need to go deeper. The water table has dropped significantly." Young Jasper appeared with fresh water for the workers. The boy had become indispensable to their operation. His quick thinking and tireless energy impressed all three adults. "The sheriff was asking questions about me in town," Jasper reported quietly. "Wanted to know where I came from." The news troubled Silas. Sheriff Hollow was expanding his investigation beyond the engagement. The lawman sensed larger secrets at play. Days blended into exhausting routine. Dig during the cooler morning hours. Rest through the brutal afternoon heat. Resume work until darkness forced them to stop. The sisters' community sent messengers requesting updates. Their own wells had failed completely. Families faced the choice between abandoning their settlement or dying of thirst. Pastor Grant arrived with disturbing news from town. "A circuit judge is coming through next week. Sheriff Hollow has petitioned him to declare your marriage arrangement illegal." The legal challenge struck like lightning. Silas had never considered that their union might violate territorial law. His stomach churned with new anxiety. "What grounds does he have?" Amara asked with characteristic directness. "Polygamy statutes," the pastor replied, "though the law is unclear in frontier territories." Celine set down her shovel and faced the group. "Then we fight in court. Our arrangement harms no one." But fighting required resources they lacked. Legal representation cost money they didn't possess. The deck was stacked against their unconventional family. That evening brought unexpected visitors. Mrs. Doris Henderson from the general store arrived with several other townspeople. They carried food and supplies. "Not everyone agrees with the sheriff," she whispered. "Some of us believe in letting folks live as they choose." The quiet support lifted their spirits temporarily, but Sheriff Hollow's influence grew stronger each day. Fear motivated more people than compassion. The well project consumed their remaining energy. 20 feet down, they finally struck moisture. The tiny trickle of water felt like a miracle after days of dust. Silas's hands bled from constant digging. The physical labor had pushed his body beyond its limits, but he refused to quit while both communities faced crisis. Young Jasper noticed Silas favoring his right hand. The boy examined the injury with surprising knowledge of medical matters. "You need to rest this," Jasper declared. "Infection could set in." The boy's medical insight impressed everyone. His knowledge seemed advanced for someone his age. Pastor Grant watched the examination with particular interest. That night, disaster struck both settlements simultaneously. A violent storm system swept across the territory without warning. Wind howled like demons across the prairie. Silas fought to secure loose equipment as debris flew through the air. The sisters battled to protect their precious well from contamination. Young Jasper helped wherever he was needed most. A massive gust tore shingles from the barn roof. Rain poured through the gap directly onto the sisters' living quarters. Their few possessions faced destruction. Without hesitation, Silas climbed onto the roof during the storm. Wind threatened to tear him loose with every step. His gentle nature had never been tested by such physical demands, but memories of his dying mother drove him forward. He had spent 2 years nursing her through consumption. Those endless nights had taught him patience and healing in ways no one suspected. His mother had suffered terrible pain during her final months. Silas learned to calm her fears with gentle touches and soothing words. Animals responded to the same techniques. The skill had seemed useless in a harsh frontier world. Now it became their salvation as he worked methodically to repair the roof, despite dangerous conditions. Branch after branch, Shingle after shingle, he sealed the gaps. His movements stayed calm and precise, even as the storm raged around him. The sisters watched from below with growing amazement. When lightning struck nearby, Silas never flinched. His focus remained absolute. This was protection, not violence, his form of strength in action. The storm passed near dawn, leaving widespread damage across both communities. But their well remained intact. The barn provided dry shelter. Silas had saved what mattered most. Pastor Grant found him treating injured animals in the aftermath. Several cattle had suffered cuts from flying debris. Silas worked with his characteristic gentleness. "Where did you learn such skills?" the pastor asked. "My mother was sick for 2 years before she died," Silas replied simply. "I learned to help things heal." The explanation revealed depths no one had suspected. The town's weakling possessed rare talents for healing and protection. His strength took forms others couldn't recognize. But their legal troubles intensified with the judge's arrival. Sheriff Hollow presented his case with passionate conviction. The sisters' right to marry Silas hung in the balance. Worse news emerged during preliminary hearings. The ownership of the Harper sisters' inherited land was being challenged. Documents appeared to show their father never legally transferred the property. "These papers look suspicious," the circuit judge declared after examination. "Possible forgeries." The accusation hit like a thunderbolt. If proven true, the sisters could face fraud charges. Their promised 300 acres would revert to county ownership. Everything they had built together suddenly teetered on the edge of collapse. Their unconventional family faced complete destruction through legal maneuvering. Young Jasper sat in the courtroom gallery, his face pale with worry. The boy understood more about their situation than anyone realized. His knowledge would soon prove crucial to their survival. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Sheriff Hollow presented his evidence. The land documents spread across the judge's desk looked official enough, but something about their condition seemed too perfect for papers supposedly decades old. Amara and Celine sat rigid in their chairs as accusations of forgery filled the air. Their father's legacy was being stripped away by legal technicalities. The 300 fertile acres that promised their future now threatened their freedom. Pastor Grant studied the documents with growing concern. His weathered hands traced the edges of each paper. Years of church record-keeping had taught him to spot inconsistencies. "These signatures don't match other examples of the land speculator's writing," he whispered to the sisters. But Sheriff Hollow's presentation continued with theatrical flair. He painted a picture of desperate people resorting to fraud for personal gain. The judge listened with apparent sympathy for the lawman's position. Young Jasper fidgeted in the gallery, his face growing paler by the moment. The boy understood legal proceedings better than expected. His education seemed far above what an orphan should possess. Silas watched helplessly as their dreams crumbled. The gentle rancher had found his voice defending their relationship. Now legal complexities beyond his understanding threatened everything they had built together. The prosecution's case reached its climax with dramatic effect. Sheriff Hollow declared the Harper sisters criminals who had deceived an innocent man. Their unconventional marriage was merely a cover for land fraud. Circuit Judge Morrison called for a brief recess to examine the evidence privately. The crowded courtroom erupted in whispered conversations. Some townspeople supported the sheriff's position. Others questioned the convenient timing of these revelations. During the break, Jasper approached Pastor Grant with obvious internal conflict. The boy's hands trembled as he struggled with some momentous decision. His young face bore the weight of adult secrets. "Pastor, I need to tell you something important," Jasper said quietly. The minister knelt to the boy's eye level. Years of counseling had taught him to recognize crucial moments. Something significant was about to be revealed. "What is it, son?" Jasper glanced around nervously before speaking. "Those land papers are real, but there's more to the story than anyone knows." Pastor Grant's eyes widened. The boy possessed information that could change everything, but revealing secrets often carried dangerous consequences. "Tell me what you know, Jasper." The boy took a deep breath before beginning his revelation. "My mother was white. She died giving birth to me 12 years ago, But before she died, she told the Harper sisters something important. The pastor leaned closer, sensing the magnitude of what was coming. "My mother was the land speculator's daughter," Jasper continued. "She inherited the 300 acres when he died. The Harper sisters have been protecting that secret all these years." The revelation struck like lightning. This mixed-race orphan boy was the true legal heir to the disputed property. His white grandfather had been the original owner whose death created the inheritance confusion. Pastor Grant's mind raced through the implications. The Harper sisters weren't committing fraud. They were protecting a child's inheritance until he came of age. Their father had been the boy's step-grandfather through marriage to Jasper's grandmother. "Why haven't you spoken before now?" the pastor asked gently. Jasper's eyes filled with tears. "Because being mixed race makes me nobody's child. White folks won't claim me. Some black folks question my place too. The sisters said I'd be safer as an orphan until I grew up." The cruel logic made perfect sense in their divided world. A mixed-race child with property rights faced dangers from multiple directions. Anonymity had been his protection. But the current crisis forced the truth into daylight. The Harper sisters faced prison if the fraud charges stuck. Their sacrifice to protect Jasper would be wasted if they were destroyed. Pastor Grant realized the full scope of their predicament. Jasper's revelation would save the sisters from fraud charges, but it would also expose a vulnerable child to scrutiny from those who opposed mixed marriages and inheritance. "Are you willing to testify about this?" the pastor asked. Jasper nodded with determination beyond his years. "If it will save my family." The word family carried special meaning now. Silas, Amara, and Celine had become the boy's chosen relatives. Their unconventional arrangement was really about creating family for an orphaned child. Pastor Grant approached the sisters during the recess break. His whispered explanation of Jasper's revelation left them stunned. Their protective secret was about to become public knowledge. "We always planned to tell him when he turned 18, Amara said quietly. "This crisis forces our hand early." Celine looked toward the boy with maternal concern. "He's just a child. This attention could be dangerous for him." But Jasper had already made his choice. The boy approached the three adults with adult-like resolve. His decision would reshape their entire legal strategy. "I want to tell the truth," he declared. "All of it." Pastor Grant explained the situation to the circuit judge during a private conference. The magistrate's expression shifted from skepticism to amazement as the full story emerged. Judge Morrison reconvened the court with new gravity. The fraud charges against the Harper sisters were being suspended pending further investigation. New testimony would be heard immediately. Sheriff Hollow sensed his case slipping away. The lawman's confidence faltered as unexpected developments unfolded. His simple narrative of fraud and deception was becoming complicated by family relationships he hadn't known existed. Young Jasper stood to address the court with remarkable composure. His mixed heritage was obvious to everyone present, but his articulate speech impressed even hostile observers. The boy's testimony would determine the fate of everyone he loved. 3 adults had risked everything to give him family and security. Now, he had to save them through his own courage. Silas felt profound pride watching the boy prepare to speak. This child represented everything their unconventional family was trying to build. A future where love mattered more than prejudice. The courtroom fell silent as Jasper began revealing secrets that would change everything they thought they knew about inheritance, family, and belonging in the harsh frontier world. Young Jasper's voice carried clearly through the packed courtroom as he began his testimony. The 12-year-old boy stood straighter than many adults present, his mixed heritage obvious to every observer. "My name is Jasper William Harper," he declared. "I am the grandson of Thomas Whitmore, the land speculator who owned the 300 acres in question." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Sheriff Hollow's face went pale as his carefully constructed case began crumbling. Judge Morrison leaned forward with intense interest. Jasper continued with remarkable composure for someone his age. My mother was Sarah Whitmore. She died giving birth to me 12 years ago. The Harper sisters have been protecting my inheritance ever since. The revelation transformed everything. This wasn't fraud at all. The sisters had been guardians protecting a child's rightful property until he came of age. Pastor Grant stood to provide corroborating testimony. His records showed Sarah Whitmore's marriage to James Harper, Amara and Celine's brother. The union had created complex family relationships that transcended racial boundaries. The Harper sisters became Jasper's aunts through marriage, Pastor Grant explained. They've sacrificed their own security to ensure his inheritance remained protected. Sheriff Hollow rose with desperate objections. His entire prosecution depended on portraying the sisters as criminals. Now they emerged as heroic guardians who had given up everything for a vulnerable child. Judge Morrison examined birth certificates and marriage records with growing understanding. The legal puzzle pieces fit together perfectly. No fraud had occurred. Only family loyalty and sacrifice. The sisters testified about their brother James and his love for Sarah Whitmore. Their interracial marriage had scandalized both communities, but love had conquered prejudice, at least temporarily. James died in a farming accident when Jasper was 2, Amara explained. Sarah made us promise to protect the boy and his inheritance. Celine added emotional weight to their testimony. We've lived as poor women to avoid drawing attention to Jasper's wealth. His safety mattered more than our comfort. The sacrifice impressed even hostile observers. These women had chosen poverty and hardship to protect a child who wasn't biologically theirs. Their character spoke louder than any legal argument. But Sheriff Hollow wasn't finished. He attacked their decision to involve Silas in the arrangement. The lawman painted their marriage proposal as manipulation of an innocent man. They're using this boy's inheritance to trap Mr. Bryn, Sheriff Hollow argued. It's still deception, regardless of legal technicalities. The accusation stung because it contained a grain of truth. The sisters had offered marriage and land to secure Jasper's future. Their motives were pure, but their methods were questionable. Now Silas faced his greatest test. The gentle rancher had to explain his own motivations without appearing foolish or manipulated. His words would determine whether their unconventional family could survive legal scrutiny. Silas stood slowly, his hands trembling slightly. The entire courtroom waited for his response to the sheriff's accusations. Everything depended on his ability to articulate feelings he barely understood himself. Your Honor, nobody trapped me into anything, Silas began quietly. These women saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. His voice grew stronger with each word. The man who had stammered through simple conversations now spoke with conviction about the most important relationships of his life. They didn't offer me land to manipulate me. They offered me family, something I've wanted my whole life but never knew how to find. The courtroom listened with growing attention. Silas's honesty was impossible to fake. His transformation from isolated bachelor to confident family man was visible to everyone present. Young Jasper needs parents, not just guardians, Silas continued. The sisters need security for their community. I need purpose beyond my own survival. We found all those things together. Judge Morrison studied the unusual family with obvious fascination. Their arrangement violated social conventions but served everyone's legitimate needs. The law existed to protect people, not punish them for finding happiness. Jasper spoke again, his young voice carrying adult wisdom. Mr. Silas didn't know about my inheritance when he proposed marriage. He chose us before he knew about the land. The boy's testimony demolished Sheriff Hollow's manipulation theory. Silas had committed to their family before learning about the 300 acres. His motives were pure. Pastor Grant provided the final piece of their defense. His documentation showed the timeline of events clearly. Silas's proposal preceded any discussion of Jasper's inheritance by several days. This family formed through love and mutual need, the pastor declared, not through deception or greed. The judge called for final arguments from both sides. Sheriff Hollow's case had collapsed, but he made one last appeal to social prejudices. He painted their arrangement as dangerous to community values. Polygamy and racial mixing threaten the foundations of civilized society, the sheriff argued desperately. The law must protect traditional families. But Silas had found his full voice now. The man who once feared his own shadow stood to address the court with quiet dignity. Your Honor, our family may look different, but we share the same hopes as anyone else. We want to raise children with love and security. We want to contribute to our community's prosperity. He gestured toward Jasper, then toward the sisters. This boy needs parents. These women need protection. I need family. Together we're stronger than any of us could be alone. The simple truth resonated through the courtroom. Even some of Sheriff Hollow's supporters began questioning their opposition. Love and commitment mattered more than social conventions. Judge Morrison retired to consider his verdict. The crowded courtroom waited in tense silence. Their decision would determine whether unconventional families had legal rights in territorial law. Jasper sat between Silas and the sisters, surrounded by the family he had chosen. Win or lose, they would face the future together. Their bond transcended any legal ruling. The judge's return would bring either validation or destruction. Everything they had built together hung in the balance of one man's interpretation of justice. Judge Morrison returned to the courtroom with solemn dignity. The packed gallery held its collective breath as he prepared to deliver his verdict. Silas felt Jasper's small hand slip into his own. After careful consideration of all testimony and evidence, the judge began, this court finds no evidence of fraud against the Harper sisters. Relief washed over their small family group. The fraud charges had been the most dangerous threat to their future, but the judge wasn't finished with his ruling. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, the court recognizes young Jasper Harper as the legal heir to his grandfather's property. The Harper sisters acted as proper guardians in protecting his inheritance. Jasper squeezed Silas's hand tighter. At 12 years old, he was officially a landowner. The 300 acres that had caused so much controversy now belonged to him legally. Regarding the marriage arrangement, the judge said with measured words, territorial law allows for unconventional family structures when they serve the best interests of all parties involved. The ruling sent murmurs through the courtroom. Judge Morrison was establishing legal precedent that would affect other frontier families facing similar circumstances. The court hereby recognizes the marriage between Silas Bryn and the Harper sisters as legal and binding, he declared firmly. Sheriff Hollow slumped in his chair as his case completely collapsed. The unconventional family he had tried to destroy was now legally protected. His prejudice had been rejected by territorial law. Pastor Grant immediately approached the family with congratulations. The minister had risked his own reputation supporting their cause. His faith in their love had been vindicated. When would you like to hold the ceremony? He asked with obvious joy. The wedding took place 3 days later in the meadow between their properties. Members of both the white and black communities attended, though some came reluctantly. Change always faced resistance. Mrs. Henderson from the general store brought flowers from her garden. Other supporters contributed food for the celebration. Even some former opponents showed grudging respect for the judge's decision. Silas wore his father's old suit, carefully mended for the occasion. The Harper sisters wore white dresses sewn by women from their settlement. Jasper served as ring-bearer, his face glowing with happiness. Pastor Grant's ceremony emphasized family bonds that transcended blood relations. His words spoke of love creating connections stronger than any social convention could break. By the power vested in me by territorial law and divine authority, the pastor pronounced, I declare you husband and wives, united in holy matrimony. The legal adoption papers were signed immediately after the wedding. Jasper officially became Silas's son and the sisters' legal ward. Their unconventional family was now complete in every sense. 6 months later, their transformed life bore fruit in multiple ways. The combined properties flourished under improved farming techniques. Silas's gentle touch with animals perfectly complemented the sisters' agricultural knowledge. Their first harvest exceeded all expectations. Crops grew abundantly on land that had previously barely sustained one struggling bachelor. The marriage of different skills had created unprecedented prosperity. Celine's pregnancy announcement brought joy throughout both communities. The baby would represent the future they were all building together. Old boundaries were dissolving through new life. House of Three Hearts became the farm's official name. The title reflected their unique family structure and welcomed all visitors regardless of background. Their home became a symbol of possibility. The property served as an unofficial stop for travelers between settlements. Mixed families found safe haven there. Runaway slaves discovered assistance on their journey to freedom. Their kindness attracted others, seeking acceptance. Sheriff Hollow gradually abandoned his opposition as the family's positive impact became undeniable. His grudging respect never became friendship, but active hostility faded into reluctant tolerance. "Can't argue with success," he admitted privately to other townspeople. Young Jasper thrived in his new environment. The boy's quick mind absorbed lessons from all three parents. His education combined practical farming skills with book learning Pastor Grant provided. The child grew fluent in the diplomatic skills needed to bridge different communities. His mixed heritage became an asset rather than a burden. He represented hope for future generations. Trade relationships developed between previously isolated settlements. The Harper sisters' connections opened new markets for everyone's products. Prosperity lifted all families willing to embrace change. Amara established a school that welcomed children from both communities. Education became another bridge connecting different worlds. Knowledge flowed in all directions. Winter brought Selene's labor pains and the arrival of twins. A boy and girl entered the world together, symbolizing the unity their parents had created. The babies carried both African and European features. The birth attracted visitors from dozens of miles away. People came to witness this living proof that different worlds could merge successfully. Hope took physical form in two small lives. Silas held his newborn son with the same gentle touch he used with injured animals. Fatherhood suited him perfectly. His patient nature was ideal for raising children. Pastor Grant baptized the twins at a ceremony that filled their largest barn. The celebration included gospel songs from the black settlement and hymns from the white church. Music united what prejudice had tried to separate. Spring arrived with renewed energy and expanded plans. The House of Three Hearts announced its first annual harvest festival. Both communities would celebrate together on neutral ground. The festival became a tradition that outlasted its founders. Years later, children who had grown up attending the celebration couldn't imagine their communities existing separately. Silas often stood on his porch in the evenings, watching his children play while his wives planned the next day's work. The shy rancher had become patriarch of a family that changed history. 2 black women had asked him for a child, and his answer had transformed an entire region. Love had conquered fear. Family had defeated prejudice. The gentleman's strength had built a legacy that would endure for generations. The House of Three Hearts stood as proof that courage came in many forms, and the greatest victories were often won by the quietest voices.